This is not the person who had thrashed you." Duanmu Changfeng was also startled, as well as slightly displeased. Since this wasn't the guy, then why the heck did you point at this guy the moment you came in? No. Guo Dingquan was also very depressed. Since you're not Ling Han, then what the heck were you doing sitting here? He looked at Jin Wuji and asked, "Where is the person who had been sitting here before?" Jin Wuji was not a fool, so he immediately realized he had fallen into Ling Han's trap. This brat had offended these two people, and coincidentally he had demanded for the brat to relinquish his seat to him. As a result, the brat took advantage of the situation to lay a trap for him, causing him to suffer horribly. "That damned little beast! Ling Han!" he roared loudly. "Get out here! I'm going to kill you!" Ling Han? When Duanmu Changfeng heard this name, killing intent instantly appeared in his heart. This was the name of the junior who had caused him to sustain extraordinary loss of face. An old fox like him, of course, immediately realized that both he, Jin Wuji, had been played by Ling Han. Sure, everyone's eyes turned to look at Ling Han. Ling Han was sitting upright, and even with so many people focused on him, he did not feel the slightest bit nervous. He took a sip of wine, and could not help recollecting that in his last life, all the wines he had drunk were the best quality wine. It was definitely not something this so-called excellent wine could be compared to. For the moment, Jin Wuji had no intention of getting his revenge on Guo Ding. Moreover, the latter had Duanmu Changfeng with him, and this was a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear whose prowess was stronger than his own by who knows how many times. He looked at Ling Han, his hands tightly gripped into fists. Gravy and blood had spilled from his wounds due to being smashed into the table covered his face. His appearance was ferocious and twisted. It could practically scare kids to tears. "Ah, you've played us!" Jin Wuxian called out, pointing at Ling Han. He had finally realized the truth. "Ha!" Quite a few people could not hold themselves back from laughing aloud, so the saying held true. Though a dragon has 9 sons, each of them are different. This Jin Wuxian was a complete idiot. It didn't even seem that he and Jin Wuji could have come from the same father and mother. "You are indeed extremely daring," Duanmu Changfeng said darkly. He actually dared to manipulate even himself. Looks like this little junior was really tired of living. Seeing Duanmu Changfeng speak, Jin Wuji immediately fell silent. Obviously, the former also had some kind of conflict with Ling Han, and this man was in gushing spring tear, and his status was far higher than his own as well. Even if he intended to get his own revenge, he would have to wait for his turn. Duanmu Changfeng took great strides towards Ling Han, his eyes cold. He had already decided, even if Zhu Haixin and Jiang Weishan both came, he would still not spare this insolent junior. Guo Dingquan followed closely, a cold smile upon his lips. This brat dared to trick even his master. He was really dead this time. Duanmu Changfeng did not walk very fast, but every step he took caused the whole main hall to shake slightly, showing the towering rage that this man, one who excelled in both sword arts and alchemy, was currently feeling. Even Qi Yongye, as the 4th prince, dared not speak up in defense of Ling Han at this moment. What was Ling Han going to do now? His move just now was indeed very beautiful, managing to trap and trick 2 of his enemies simultaneously. However, no matter if it was Duanmu Changfeng or the Jin clan, neither was a party that could be offended without harsh consequences. Everyone felt extremely curious about his next move. Ling Han did not look at all like that kind of fool. Liu Yutong immediately stood and assumed a defensive stance in front of Ling Han. However, she was immediately pushed lightly aside by Ling Han. Ling Han only said calmly, "The 4 winds rise, clouds in the heavens thrown into disorder. The tiger and crane both appear, creating invincibility." "Gee!" Duanmu Changfeng's advancing steps paused, and he looked as if he had been struck by a lightning bolt, wearing an expression like he had just seen a ghost. But after a short moment, he immediately looked very excited, so much in fact that even his body began shaking. This was the verbal chant for the 8th move of the Sweeping Cloud Sword Arts. The Sweeping Cloud Sword Arts was a black-grade medium-level martial arts technique. He had learned it from a secret scroll he had obtained from an ancient site. Unfortunately, due to the long passage of time, The parts showing the last two moves had completely deteriorated. There was only a verbal chant as well as an illustration for the 8th move, but there wasn't even a name for the 9th move left behind. The reason why he could afford to not take Zhu Heixin and Jiang Weishan seriously was because he possessed the Sweeping Cloud sword art. The three of them were all in the 3rd layer of Gushing Spring tier, but because of the Sweeping Cloud sword arts, even if Zhu Heixin and Jiang Weishan joined forces, they would still be no match for him. But it was precisely because this sword arts technique was so powerful that he desired to obtain the last two moves even in his dreams. Thus, when Ling Han recited the verbal chant from Sweeping Cloud sword arts, how could he not be excited? You know it? Duanmu Changfeng said, his voice stuttering. Naturally! Ling Han nodded. Will you teach me? The old guy's face was filled with expectation. Ling Han smiled and said, That will depend on your performance. Duanmu Changfeng did not even spend any time to consider and said, Whatever request you have, just say it. Whether it is alchemical pills or resources for cultivation, I can give them to you. Say! Around them, everyone was at an absolute loss. Just now, Duanmu Changfeng seemed like he would stop at nothing in his desire to kill Ling Han. So how come his attitude changed so drastically? Was this some kind of magic trick? Master, Guoding Quan had become anxious. What kind of demonic magic had this brat used? Ling Han pointed at Jin Wuji and his brother and turned to point at Guoding Quan as well and said, These three guys, they are unpleasant to my eyes! Very well! A very experienced man, like Duanmu Changfeng, of course, instantly understood Ling Han's meaning. He did not say another word before he lifted up Guoding Quan in one move and in a flash arrived in front of the Jin brothers. His left hand gave a shove, and a very powerful, irresistible force caused the two Jin brothers to fall down onto the floor. Peng, 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 peng. Duanmu Changfeng kicked and punched, ravaging the three as much as he liked. Everyone else was completely dumbfounded. Ling Han had just said a few words that sounded like some kind of verbal chant, and Duanmu Changfeng actually became Ling Han's underling, obeying his commands. Admiration for Ling Han had risen in all of them. Whether it was Guoding Quan, the Jin brothers, or even Duanmu Changfeng, they had all been played, being in the palm of his hand. The Jin brothers were completely depressed, the depression sinking into their very bones. What great enmity or conflict did they have with Duanmu Changfeng? Previously, they had been thrashed by this old man for no reason, but that could be explained by it all being a misunderstanding due to Ling Han tricking them both. But what about this time? But since a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring tier had made his move, what else could they do other than obediently suffer the thrashing without complaints? Qi Yongye's face was twitching all over. Since the moment he saw that Ling Han had Liu Yutong accompany him, he already knew that this guy was definitely not ordinary, but to be awesome to such an extent caused even him to experience a great shock. Duanmu Changfeng was not just a warrior of Gushing Spring tier, he was also a black-grade low-level alchemist, being slightly well-known in Rain Country. Even if a powerful warrior of Spiritual Ocean tier met him, the former would be extremely courteous and polite. But now, to put it in a coarse manner, what difference did he have with being Ling Han's underling, simply doing as the latter commanded? What happened to the dignity of an alchemist or the moral integrity of a warrior of Gushing Spring tier? However, if he maintained a good relationship with Ling Han, did that mean he would be able to take Duanmu Changfeng under his own banner? The first prince was so excited just from being able to befriend Guoding Quan. If he managed to attract Duanmu Changfeng to his side, then his position would be incomparably steady, and no one would be able to stop him from inheriting the king's position. And thus, when Zhu Heixin and Jiang Weishan arrived at a later time, they saw such a scene. Duanmu Changfeng was thrashing his own disciple and the Jin brothers as if he had gone mad, while the person they were supposedly here to rescue, Ling Han, was leisurely sitting drinking wine and eating. What kind of game were they playing here?